And I feel like you obviously have an incredibly refined sense of humour, and at the risk of bolstering a compliment that I've already given you that was scarcely reciprocated, I feel like you're a genius, like in a like proper Hancock, Cleese, Coogan kind of lineage. And even though your background is sort of marked by ordinariness and the sort of gentle beauty of the ordinary is obviously something that captivates you, there is something alienating first, I think, about that kind of insight that you have, and I would offer also secondarily by becoming very successful. And I wonder about how you've experienced alienation both prior to success and subsequent to it. Also bearing in mind, like prior to your comedy career, the stuff with the new romantic looking 20-year-old Ricky Gervais stuff. And also remember, I did mention to you about suicide and despair earlier. So if you can just have an answer that covers all of that territory.
Jesus. Well, I don't know if I don't know. I don't think I've ever suffered from any of those more chronic conditions. I've never really felt that alienated, or I've never suffered from terrible anxiety or depression without cause. I've had grief, loved ones die and all that. Growing up, I didn't know I was poor and working class till I was 14, 15. Do you know what I mean? We're all in the same boat. I went to a comprehensive school. I was smart, so I was in the top few there. I always felt I'd go to university. Do you know what I mean? I never felt everything's out of my reach. I never thought it won't happen to you, which is odd. I don't know why I had that confidence. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe it was bravado, or maybe I just thought that's the only way to do it. Academia. It's so funny because, 500 years ago, to move through a class, you had to be a great warrior and you might get a knighthood, but that was very rare and dangerous. Then the industrialists started, finding coal or prospectors went and found gold, and they moved up and they moved into neighborhoods like mine. They became wealthier than the wealthy. But in our sort of lifetime, I suppose the last group to do it is pop culture. It's footballers and pop stars, where you suddenly heard working class and regional accents, and they were in mansion houses and driving Rolls Royces into pools, which I'm sure you've done, but I never would. I'd go, that's a waste. Let's get you. So thrown a telly out. We can fix this. We can fix this. So I'm sort of aware of all those things, but I never felt it. I was never conscious of it. I suppose the first time I went for an interview at university, that's when I heard people who sounded a bit like the Queen, and I hadn't heard that accent. My teachers were working class. It was like everything. They were working class. They were lads. They were working class lads in a comprehensive school in Reading. So that's when you started mixing with people, of difference in class and wealth. And I remember meeting someone. He didn't know what a supermarket was, and I thought he was winding me up. And I guess I was playing it a bit, because in my first year I gave myself a skinhead, and I loved the fact that I was ID'd going into the college and I could show so I definitely and I remember I wore my dad's old Lang donkey jacket in 19. I thought, yeah. Oh, hiya guys, I'm working class. I'm one of the 6%. You know what I mean? It's like, but what was the last part of the question? Have I?
Well, I guess I was sort of talking about, like, you've sort of explained you didn't feel alienated, but you also don't seem like you wore literally your class as a badge and didn't feel inferiority. And like, I suppose, like, you know, a character like David Brent, like, who's like under all this sort of excruciating social pressure and wants to better himself on camera, right through to the protagonist in Afterlife dealing with despair. Like, it's like, in your, like, and of course your obsession with authenticity, I wonder where in your own life is it something that's very private to you, feelings of pain?
It does go into your art, but sometimes, you know, I'm very keen for people to know that they shouldn't use every joke as a window to the soul of the comedian, because sometimes I'll make a joke or a routine that is the opposite of what I feel, because it makes the joke better. And I'm militant about people going, listen, it sometimes it really is just a joke, and sometimes it's the opposite of what I believe. I start with my Supernature tour. I do a sort of an off-color joke, and they go, oh, they've grown, and I go, well, that was irony, you see, because that's when I say something I don't really mean, and you as an audience laugh at the wrong thing because you know what the right thing is. It's a way to, and and they get it, and then I'll call back that sometimes. I go, no, don't let me down now. Remember what we said. So I'm playing with those constraints and misunderstandings. But your first point is that David Brent, he was sort of on that cusp. I was fascinated that Cleese did it a little bit with Fawlty Towers, where, you know, he was sort of lower middle class, and, you know, he wanted to his aspiration was Buckingham Palace, whereas by the time I got around to doing The Office, the new aspiration was Beckingham Palace. It was that sort of level, you know what I mean? I want to be on telly. I want to be on telly. I want to be famous, and it was just creeping in then. And it was a very important part of The Office. Without it being a fake documentary, that is a very boring average sitcom. There's some jokes, there's some great performances, but if you don't know why this man is acting like that, you've lost 50% of what's funny and tragic about that. And you're right, he's trying to move, just like Basil Fawlty, he's trying to move, right? But he's doing it for the same reasons, right? And all this bullshit, I want that, I want this, we need that, we have to do that, but it all comes down to one thing, right? It's being happy. It's being happy with yourself and having, and then what's being happy with? There's so many boxes to tick, and the one people forget is worth. It's absolutely massive. It's worth, and so all those things went into David Brent, but he basically needed a hug. And I remember in the days when you were in every paper and doing every interview, right? Someone said, what's your favourite thing? And you said, The Office. And there was a picture of David Brent. And you talked about David Brent, and you said, it's beautiful. It's sad. And it is. And I remember that was one of the first times I'd read that it is sad, because he needs a hug. That's all he's doing. He's saying, am I good enough? Do you love me yet? And it's fucking tragic. And when you know that, I think you like David Brent. I think you like him.
Yeah, I always did. But my favourite lines, I like that. I was thinking about it recently. That's not good news and bad news. That's good news and irrelevant news. And you go, that's not a phrase, though, is it?
But now that level of narcissism is mediocre. Now we have leaders saying things like that. The bad news is that the pandemic. The good news is I'm up 3 in the polls. You know, it really, and it just got worse and worse. I had to really up my game for life on the road, because it had been 15 years, and now David Brent wasn't even that odd. Do you know what I mean? People on The Apprentice who say, I will destroy anyone who stands in my way. That is like an unwritten law with the producers going, let me on and I'll behave badly Big Brother contestants. Let me in there and I'll start a fight and take my clothes off. Okay, you promise? Yeah. With this obsession with seeing normal people destroy themselves. I don't know how some of them pass the medical exam, because some of them, they shouldn't be in there, and it's not good for them. This thing where people keep going back to fame and going, do you love me yet? No, they don't love you. They want you to fail. Anyway,